What if displaying a flag to honor police got you arrested, fined $600, and banned by your HOA? In Arizona, Mike Foster's simple act of support turned into a fight for free speech, one that ended in heartbreak. Stay tuned for a story of defiance, betrayal, and a community's desperate plea for justice. In the sun-scorched suburb of Desert Bloom Estates, Arizona, where the desert sun cast long shadows over rows of stucco homes, 55-year-old Mike Foster lived a life of quiet patriotism. A retired firefighter who had served his community for 30 years, Mike had moved into his $320,000 home in 2020, seeking a peaceful retirement with his wife Linda and their golden retriever Max. On the morning of June 10th, 2025, Mike stood in his front yard, the dry desert breeze rustling his gray hair as he hammered a small pole into the ground. He unfurled a blue and black flag emblazoned with the words "Blue Lives Matter," a tribute to the police officers he'd worked alongside during his career, many of whom had risked their lives to save others. The flag flapped gently in the wind, its fabric snapping softly, a symbol of gratitude in the stillness of the morning. Desert Bloom Estates was governed by a rigid homeowners association, led by 61-year-old President Harold Grayson, a former real estate agent with a reputation for enforcing rules with an iron grip. Harold saw the neighborhood as a pristine oasis. No garish decorations, no unapproved structures, and certainly no signs that could stir controversy. The HOA bylaws stated, no unapproved signage or flags may be displayed, with a $600 fine per violation, a rule Harold interpreted as a blanket ban on anything he deemed unfit. As he drove through the neighborhood on his morning rounds, his SUV humming softly, he spotted Mike's flag, its bold colors clashing with his vision of uniformity. His face darkened, his hands tightening on the steering wheel, and he muttered to himself, "That flag is coming down. Today." At 9:15 a.m., just as Mike finished watering his cactus garden, the piercing wail of police sirens shattered the morning calm. He turned, his watering can slipping from his hand and clattering to the ground, as a police cruiser rolled into the cul-de-sac, its tires crunching on the gravel-strewn pavement. Red and blue lights flashing in the desert sun. Two officers stepped out, their boots thudding against the ground. The taller one, Officer James Carter, a 42-year-old with a stern demeanor, leading the way. "Sir, we've had a complaint about your flag," Officer Carter said, his voice cold and clipped, cutting through the dry air. Mike's brow furrowed, his hands resting on his hips as he squared his shoulders. "A complaint? It's a flag honoring the police. Your colleagues," he said, his voice steady but laced with disbelief, the words carrying across the yard. Harold, who had followed in his SUV, stepped out with a smug expression, clutching a fine notice in his hand. "Your flag is unapproved and could be seen as controversial," he declared, his tone sharp and authoritative. "That's a $600 fine, payable now, or we'll have it removed by force." Mike's face flushed with anger, his voice rising as he pointed at the flag. "This is my property, and I have the right to honor the police. You can't stop free speech," he shouted, his words overlapping with the sound of Harold tearing the fine notice from his pad, the paper ripping with a harsh sound. But Officer Carter, known in Desert Bloom for his close ties to the HOA after years of responding to their complaints, wasn't swayed. "You're causing a disturbance," he snapped, his tone icy, as he unhooked his handcuffs from his belt, the metal clanking ominously. "Either take it down or you're under arrest for disorderly conduct." Mike stood his ground, his heart pounding as he refused to remove the flag, the fabric still flapping defiantly in the breeze. Officer Carter stepped forward, grabbing Mike's arm with a firm grip, the handcuffs snapping shut around his wrists with a sharp click. "You're coming with us," Carter growled, his voice low as he led Mike to the cruiser, the door slamming shut with a heavy thud. Linda ran out of the house, her slippers slapping against the pavement, her voice breaking as she cried, "Mike, you can't do this!" The second officer, a younger man, tore the flag from its pole, the fabric ripping with a loud tear, the sound echoing in the quiet morning as he tossed it to the ground, the blue and black colors crumpling in the dirt. Mike spent 6 hours in a holding cell at the local precinct, the hum of fluorescent lights above him, a constant reminder of his humiliation, before being released with a warning. When he returned home, the crumpled flag still lay in the yard, the $600 fine notice tucked under his windshield wiper, the paper fluttering in the wind. He couldn't let this go, not just for himself, but for the principles he'd spent his life defending. Word of the incident spread through Desert Bloom Estates, whispered among neighbors during morning walks, and shared over coffee at the community center. The residents, many of whom respected Mike for his years of service, were outraged by the HOA's actions and the police's overreach. The next evening, a group of neighbors, led by 48-year-old pastor Rachel Evans, organized a public prayer vigil in front of Mike's house. At 7 p.m., under the glow of the setting sun, dozens of residents gathered on the lawn, their footsteps rustling the dry grass as they formed a circle, holding candles that flickered in the desert breeze. Rachel led the group in a prayer for justice and free speech, her voice soft but resolute. The collective chant of Amen, rising like a wave, echoing through the neighborhood. Neighbors who couldn't attend watched from their windows, some joining in with murmured prayers, their voices a quiet hum of support. The vigil caught the attention of the Desert Bloom Herald, which ran a story titled, "Retired Firefighter Fined $600, Arrested for Blue Lives Matter Flag." The reporter's voice amplifying the community's anger through a local radio broadcast. Encouraged by the support, Mike decided to sue the HOA, hiring a lawyer, 50-year-old Susan Harper, who specialized in First Amendment cases. Susan, a fierce advocate for free expression, argued that the HOA's ban violated Mike's constitutional rights and that the police had abused their authority by arresting him, her voice steady and commanding in the courtroom. The trial drew a crowd of Desert Bloom residents, their footsteps shuffling as they filled the benches, their murmurs a quiet buzz of anticipation. Mike took the stand, his voice thick with emotion as he recounted the day, his words carrying the weight of his conviction. "I put up that flag to honor the officers I worked with," he said, his tone unwavering. "They can't take away my right to speak." Susan presented legal precedents protecting free speech on private property, her arguments sharp and compelling, the rustle of documents loud as she handed them to the judge. But Harold and Officer Carter were unyielding. Harold claimed the flag threatened community harmony, his voice nasal and sharp, his fingers tapping impatiently on the table. Officer Carter defended the arrest, insisting Mike's refusal to comply constituted disorderly conduct, his tone gruff and unapologetic. The judge, a 65-year-old known for favoring HOA authority, sided with the HOA, his gavel slamming down with a resounding thud that silenced the room. "The bylaws prioritize community standards over individual expression," he declared, his voice booming, the echo lingering. Mike was ordered to pay the $600 fine, plus $5,000 in HOA legal fees. The verdict a devastating blow that left him staring at the floor, his shoulders slumped in defeat. The aftermath was grim. The HOA, emboldened by the ruling, banned all flags and signage in the neighborhood, announcing the new rule at the next meeting, Harold's voice echoing through the community center's speakers with a new fine of $800 for violations. Mike, financially strained, had to dip into his retirement savings, the sound of Linda's worried sighs a constant reminder of the cost. Desert Bloom Estates, once a place of quiet pride, became a battleground, with residents fearing the HOA's unchecked power. Mike never raised another flag, the pole in his yard now a silent reminder of his lost fight, the desert wind blowing through the empty space where Blue Lives Matter once flew. And so, a simple act of gratitude became a battle for free speech in Desert Bloom Estates, Arizona. Was Mike wrong to honor the police with a flag? Or did the HOA and authorities go too far with their rules? What do you think? Should a man's right to speak be silenced for the sake of uniformity? Share your thoughts and join us next time for another tale of HOA madness. Until then, keep fighting for what's right. Thank you for listening.